Rob, you want to tell me what this silver jumpsuit is all about? Is this like a fashion trend I'm just now hearing about?
You like it? This is what everybody's going to be wearing in a few years. Nothing more futuristic than a silver jumpsuit.
Are you sure about that? It looks a little toasty inside.
I'm fine. It's a little warm. I'm sweating. I think this one's made out of aluminum foil.
Welcome to Rewind Video. I'm Bob.
I'm Rob.
And we love movies. Good ones, bad ones, old ones, new ones, movies from the past, movies that haven't even come out yet.
Theoretically, yeah.
Yeah. So you and I have been watching movies for a long time. I'd put it somewhere between 6 months and 35 to 40 years.
More than that.
Feel accurate? Yeah. When I think back to my youth, one of my favorite movie watching experiences was watching films set in the future and imagining what the world was going to be like when I was an adult. So,
I feel like the world has changed a little bit. But we're going to get into this.
Yeah, I think we are. You know, I remember watching Back to the Future 2, which we covered for our Flying Cars episode, and thinking that everything in that movie was guaranteed to arrive. Hoverboards, self-drying clothes, flying cars.
Self-tying shoes.
Self-tying shoes, dehydrated pizza. And with that film, everything felt within reach. It was set in 2015. I was going to be in my mid-30s. I was going to see all of this stuff come to fruition.
I remember when I had so-called astronaut ice cream for the first time, and I thought we were already in the future.
Right. Yeah. And lo and behold. There were better things to come. As we know, 2015 came and went. There were no hoverboards. And in fact, there was not a lot that we see in Back to the Future that actually arrived. There might be sports almanacs. I don't even know if they make those anymore. But
was that ever a thing?
I had a sports almanac when I was a kid. I don't know why.
Fair enough.
But I did.
Fair enough.
Indeed, the world is a little different than the one we were promised. But that experience of watching films set in the future is still exhilarating for all the same reasons. So tonight, we turn our attention back to the staff recommendation shelf here at Rewind Video, and as we do so, we're going to explore this phenomenon a little bit further. Listeners know that our job is to update the shelf with a regular rotation of films that our customers should consider watching. Each time we swap in new movies, we adhere to a theme, and this week's theme is the future.
Where apparently we don't need roads.
According
to future lore.
No, indeed. This was my theme. Yeah, and I think it was alluring because of all the reasons I just mentioned. This has always been just a fascinating thing for me to look at movies that try to anticipate what's to come. And, you know, who's to say how accurate they are? In a lot of cases, we haven't gotten to where these movies are taking us. But there are a couple films tonight that were made at a time where they are set in the future and that future has come and gone. And that's fun. I think that the movie that I have that is set furthest in the future is only 50 years away. So it's not like we're going centuries ahead, at least with my films.
I think most of my films, we've already passed the date.
Right? Yeah.
By a lot. Well, maybe not. Maybe at least two of them.
Yeah.
Are you excited about the future? Is that why you chose this topic?
I think it's interesting. I was excited about the future as a kid because I was always thinking about, well, what are video games going to look like, and what kind of crazy electronics are we going to have? What are the new inventions that are going to come? Now, when I think about the future, it seems very bleak. And
yeah. We saw it go from 8-bit to 16 to 32-bit. To PlayStation, whatever it is now.
Yeah.
But I think the future maybe isn't as exciting as it once was. I don't know if that's just because we're old.
You know, it's funny because I feel like media has advanced in a lot of like video games have come a long way in a short period of time. Filmmaking, just as it relates to special effects and the craft of making movies, has advanced by leaps and bounds. The rest of the world, I don't know.
It's hard to say. This is a question that comes down to like technology. Has a lot of the technology of the last 10 years really improved things? It's hard to say.
Yeah. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that are like, wow, here you are talking about video games and movies, and we've seen a lot of gadgets. We've seen a lot of advances in medicine and, the infrastructure and the way our world works.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But yeah, I think that the future, especially the way we think about it in movies, relates most to, I don't know, stuff that we engage with every day and feels a part of our lives, and what is that going to look like when it takes the next step forward. So I think that the topic is fun, and it's exciting to see on film.
When it comes down to it, I'm just hoping not to outlive functioning electricity and indoor plumbing.
Oh, yeah. Not interested in going backwards.
I just hope what we have is still around when I die.
Well, let me ask you this question. What, for you, makes for a good depiction of the future when you're seeing a movie that's set ahead of where we are today?
Well, I like to think that somebody thought, what is this future? What makes it different from today?
Yeah.
What makes it the same? How would things evolve?
Yeah. I think that's a good point. I think it's as interesting to see what changes as it is to see what is still around, at least from the filmmaker's point of view.
Right. Because it's easy to say I can imagine a jetpack. I can imagine someone could strap a jetpack to their back and fly around and do whatever. But I think the work of these kinds of stories is thinking how does a culture get to a point where, what does it look like with people using jetpacks all the time, or whatever,
right.
Whatever your idea is, you have to flesh these ideas out.
Yes,
that's what I'm looking for.
Yes, well, I think we've got a couple movies that do that pretty well. Some that maybe require some suspension of disbelief. Yeah, but that's fine. That's what a future world might look like. So it'll be fun to talk about this week's films. I did note that we have some overlapping cast in a few of our films.
Yeah.
More than one actor shows up in several movies. So
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it'll be fun to get into. Why don't you kick us off, as you usually do, with your first pick for the theme of the future?
Okay, I'm going to start us off in a future of 23 years ago. The movie is 2001: A Space Odyssey. This is from 1968. This is filed under Apes and Algorithms. Back of the box. Humanity finds a mysterious object buried beneath the lunar surface and sets off to find its origins with the help of HAL 9000, the world's most advanced supercomputer. The tagline, The Ultimate Trip.
The Ultimate Trip.
Yeah. I think they're going for the stoner market, the drug users.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. I get that. I wasn't sure if when this came out they were talking more about Trip as it relates to Journey, but
both.
Definitely,
yeah,
definitely.
It's 1968. They're going you could drop acid and come see 2001.
Yeah. I think you can still do that today.
I'm sure it's being done at this moment.
Yeah.
This is Stanley Kubrick's sci-fi masterpiece. It's one of the greatest films of all time.
Yes.
Nobody needs me to recommend 2001 to them.
I do think they need a reason to rewatch it. I don't know that this movie is in the zeitgeist the way it once was, and
I brought this to the shelf because it had been at least 10 years since I'd seen it.
Longer for me.
Probably more like 20 since I gave it a proper viewing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think because part of it is it's 2.5 hours long, so anything that's that long seems like a commitment. But this just doesn't seem like a movie that's easy to just throw on and watch.
No.
But I think in a way it kind of is, because there's a lot to look at, there's a lot to think about, but it can also work as a low investment viewing. You don't have to watch every little detail. There's a lot of empty space in this movie that lets you can just do whatever you want with it.
You can chill out.
Yeah, especially if you're familiar with it. I think people think it's there's a lot going on, but there doesn't have to be. Right. There's not a lot of dialogue. There's actually not a lot of people in this movie.
No.
Very little humanity in this movie.
Yeah.
There's some monkeys. Yeah.
Kubrick
leans real heavily into the classical musical soundtrack, which is great. And the whole movie is structured as this orchestral piece. The movie starts with several minutes of darkness and just kind of this droning orchestra, and it just seems like the universe is tuning up for what's about to happen.
Yeah.
And then there's an intermission in it, which I love. In movies with intermissions, like we need, if you're going to be that
more
long,
often.
like give us a break. Just tell us when it's going to be. We can pause it or whatever.
Yeah.
Kubrick actually had hired a composer to do an original score, but this was the temp score. This was all this was all available music that was already out. It was just like commercially available, and he put it in as a temp score, and this guy wrote an entire score, and he's like, "Nah, I'm just gonna keep it the way it is."
Wow.
He's like, "It's not gonna get better than this."
So the score was finished.
Score was finished. It was written.
Thanks, but no thanks.
The guy who wrote the score didn't know that had happened until he went to go see the movie and realized his music wasn't in it. You know how Kubrick was.
Yeah,
He didn't tell anybody shit.
Yeah.
So he didn't have to. I'm always amazed how this looks, how good it looks for being made in 1968. This was nine years before Star Wars.
Yes.
And I mean, Star Wars is, I mean, it's a different look, but it's just as convincing looking. You know, even like the Star Wars didn't do any zero gravity stuff either, and like that stuff that they do here is just, it's crazy how good it looks.
You know, I often hear this movie cited as what we evolved from when Ridley Scott brought us Aliens and introduced that dirty future look where everything is dark and grimy and used.
Yeah.
And obviously that took hold and set the stage for movies like Star Wars and a ton of other science fiction films. But this is the way the future and space travel looked like until we got there. And it's beautiful.
Oh, I mean, and it still holds up 60 years later. It
100%.
still looks great.
Yes.
Kubrick was going for that more realistic looking space travel stuff, because before it was like Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon type stuff and robots and the
clean
goofy stuff. Yeah. And like fun. I mean, the future that's depicted is 2001.
Right.
And so like there's like, so even though it is more realistic looking, it still had like the sensibility of the 60s, whereas like, I don't know, this was like a year before we landed on the moon, so it's right in the middle of the space race. And I think there was like that whole era was a fulfillment of that 50s and 60s optimism and like that vision of like how technology and society would advance, like their vision of the future, like the Jetsons' vision of the future, where like technology would just get better and we'd have flying cars and our lives would get easier and better and whatnot. And then of course, we'll just move out to space and we'll live on the moon and yada yada yada. We'll have space hotels like in this movie. But it didn't really turn out that way, you know.
No.
And I kind of have a hypothesis for why. Like I think like once we got to the moon and like once that happened, like there was a lot of enthusiasm about that, because you know, we wanted to beat the Russians at something. It was like it was like this like national project, and like we got a lot of good technology out of it, and you know, there's a lot of good things that came out of it. But like, I think once we got there, we looked at it and we're like, well, no, like we're not gonna live there. Like that's just such a ridiculous idea. Like, why would we start doing that? Like,
This seems so hard.
yeah, it seems so hard. Like it's worse than every place on Earth.
Right.
You know? Which is like, it's like the idea of like, we're going to one day colonize Mars, which like assholes talk about now. It's like, why would we ever do that?
Yeah.
There's not one good reason. Like there's literally not one good reason to do it.
No.
So it's just like, but like back then, like the vision of the future was like, we're just going to like keep expanding outwards, and you know, and we're going to live on the moon. Why not? We'll have apartments out there and we'll go, like, why would you? Yeah. No, thanks.
Well, this picking up off of what you're saying, I find it interesting how for decades, when you look at science fiction films that are set in the future, a lot of them show us a time when we have not only ventured out into space, but we've built these Goliath spaceships that, you know, are the size of a continent. And that doesn't even seem like that's where science fiction is right now in terms of the movies we're making today and the stories that we're telling. It just seems like we've lost interest in this notion of not only going to space, but advancing our technology in a way that would even allow us to get there in a way that a lot of these older movies imagined.
We've lost a lot of the optimism,
Yeah.
you know, and which I think maybe is like a better way to look at some of these things instead of being like, yeah, we'll live on Mars. It's like, well, let's figure out how to get clean water to everybody that, you know.
Right.
So I think there may be some realism that's kind of worked its way in because like there's a limit. Like we hit a limit. We're like, we got to the moon and we're like, we're going to keep going. Like, we're not. We're really not.
Right.
So yeah, 2001 is rated 4.3 overall on Letterboxd. And,
Deservingly so.
44,000 users have it in their 4 favorites. That includes me because I give it a 5-star rating. Mm-hmm. And then my last 3 5-star movies are in there along with Roadhouse, and this is one of them.
Yeah.
42% agree with me with a 5-star rating, including Letterboxd user Hania, whose 5-star review says, so people in the 60s thought that 2001 would be the peak of human intelligence and space travel, but all we got was low-waist jeans and Shrek. So I'm putting a bit of a trade-off. I'm putting 2001, A Space Odyssey on the shelf this week for the topic of the future.
This was fun to go back to. I mean, I would venture to say that a lot of our customers have seen 2001, but have you seen it lately? Have you thought about it in the context of the world we're living in today?
Have you ever seen 2001 on weed?
Oh, good question.
Think about that.
Think about that. Yeah. Well, glad you put it up there. It was fun to go back to. Looks as good as it ever has.
Yeah, good to return to.
All right. I am taking us to a movie released in 2007. And my first pick is Sunshine from the Don't Forget to Wear Sunscreen section of the store.
No shit.
So this was made in 2007. It is set in 2057, which is a 50-year difference. So we're looking ahead 50 years when this movie was made. Here's the back of the box. In the year 2057, a crew of 8 courageous men and women must embark on a journey to the sun to reignite the dying star and save mankind from extinction. But when a terrible accident throws their mission into jeopardy, the crew finds themselves fighting not only for their lives and their sanity, but for the future of us all. Tagline here, if the sun dies, so do we.
Yeah.
Acceptable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Passing grade.
C+.
Right. So how does this fit our theme? You know, separate from the fact that it is literally set in the future. What I like here is that, you know, we're imagining a world where, you know, humanity needs to confront some pretty existential threats, namely the death of the sun. And yeah, we're not so far off that the technical advancements seem far-fetched. Yes, there is a ship that is capable of getting us to the sun, and they believe they have the technology to bring it back to life.
Yeah.
But it's still grounded in enough reality, especially when we're on the spaceship, that it feels accessible. And I like that.
Yeah. The idea that the sun would be burned out in 50 years is a little silly.
Yeah.
But then again, it got me thinking that, you know, we don't necessarily know. Like, we think we know. Like, well, you can't say 100% for sure that we know
Right.
that it can't happen.
Yeah.
Because if you ask a scientist, they'll say, like, oh, we're at least millions of years away. But
Yeah.
what if they've got something wrong once a long time ago?
Yes, indeed. So this was, as I said, released in 2007. It was a collaborative effort from director Danny Boyle and writer Alex Garland. So Alex Garland we know from Civil War, Ex Machina. He and Danny Boyle had worked together previously on 28 Days Later, so they had collaborated in the past. The intention here was, you know, Danny Boyle wanted to blend an intense psychological drama with some high stakes science fiction, and I think for the most part he works. We get a strong ensemble cast. There's a lot of recognizable names here. So Cillian Murphy plays Robert Capa. He's kind of the guy behind the bomb. He's a physicist, but in addition to him, Chris Evans is here. Michelle Yeoh is here. She's kind of the biologist who's probably in charge of some space weed in the oxygen garden on this ship.
Yeah.
Rose Byrne is here. Cliff Curtis. Benedict Wong shows up. Why did I choose this? So I'm going to start by just acknowledging a little bit of an elephant in the room for anyone who has seen this, and it's the fact that there's an unexpected and arguably out-of-place plot twist in the third act of this movie where it kind of...
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah. I mean, it turns into a bit of a horror slasher for about 20 minutes. it's a little questionable, but I don't care. I think it's a little bit fun, a little bit weird, but there's enough good stuff that precedes that I'm on board for the first 2 acts, and I really, really love everything leading up to that left turn that we arrive at in the third act of the film. But how did you feel about it?
I'm not sure I was totally along for the left turn. I didn't think they needed to land the plane on what was going on in the first 2 acts.
Yeah.
And I think they got a little distracted with what was going on here.
Yeah.
It's very reminiscent of what's that Lawrence Fishburne movie?
Event Horizon?
Yeah, Event Horizon. It's like, what if we made like our version of 2001, and then at the end it was just Event Horizon?
Right.
And it's very stylish, it's very stylized.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it didn't fit together completely.
I don't disagree, and I'm not going to try to justify it because at the end of the day, I do think that what happens near that third act is ultimately out of place. But I was always struck by how interesting this premise was. The idea of the sun is dying, can humanity save it? And that gets me. I mean, ultimately, this feels kind of like a thinking man's Armageddon.
Yeah. Right.
Which until we get to the Event Horizon events.
It almost was trying a little bit too hard to be profound, I think.
Yeah.
But it did ask the question, like, how weird does shit get when you get into deep space?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have a feeling it gets pretty fucking weird.
I think so. I agree with you there. I think this is beautifully shot for a lot of the first 2/3 of the movie. You have several characters in this film who become fixated, almost hypnotized by the sun. And I think Danny Boyle does a pretty good job of helping you feel what they're feeling. The way the sun is depicted is pretty breathtaking. I get the obsession. And I love that they went to an effort to show us what these guys are seeing and feeling, and what it's like to be that close to the star.
Yeah, it's visually it's an amazing movie.
Yeah. But
just the story just goes a little bit askew.
It does. Yeah. I don't disagree with you. I do think the score here is pretty tremendous, but this did well with critics, bombed at the box office. It also didn't fare too well with the scientific community.
Again, they might be wrong.
They might be wrong, but there was a lot of criticisms. They're probably right. Yeah, the whole notion of how this spacecraft works, even if there's a anti-gravity system on it, and the mere premise that a nuclear bomb could reignite the sun, when according to experts, it probably takes like billions of these devices.
Ridiculous. Like, I want to throw a match in there and it'll relight. Plus, like, the idea that there would be this mission and it would even be possible to just like take a detour and pick somebody up. Right. Like, there's no way you could, like, these missions are not designed to do that.
Right.
Like, you would do that only if you absolutely had to.
Now, when you put it like that, it does seem ridiculous that they would take any sort of detour.
Yes.
However, I can relate to the moral quandary that they're facing, which is, do our chances increase if we have 2 shots at pulling this off?
No. No, you have. I'm sorry, you have to throw something in the story that's like our bomb just got fucked up.
Yeah. We're not confident in our bomb.
You can't, like, something happened, we don't think it's going to work, but like this crazy coincidence happened, there's a chance, like, why not just do that instead of going like, let's try it.
That's
why?
True. That's fair. I can't disagree.
There's some story problems here, I think.
Yeah. Well, this
it's worth a watch.
It is. It averages a 3.6 on Letterboxd. That's a hair low for me. I'm aligned with David Ehrlich's 4-star review on Letterboxd, where he said, "Me watching this in 2007, what a hypnotically transportive meditation on God, death, and the inexhaustible flame of humanity. Me watching this in 2023, the sun is quiet quitting, lol." So I'm putting it on the shelf. It's my first pick for the future. Sunshine.
Awesome. Okay. I'm going to bring us up to the year of 2011, so not too far off from Sunshine.
Yeah.
The movie is In Time.
In Time.
In Time. This is filed under wristwatchers. Here's the back of the box. In the not-too-distant future, the aging gene has been switched off. To avoid overpopulation, time has become the currency and the way people pay for luxuries and necessities. The rich can live forever while the rest try to negotiate for their immortality. A poor young man who comes into a fortune of time, though too late to help his mother from dying. Then the sentence just ends there. He ends up on the run from a corrupt police force known as timekeepers.
Boy, it feels like they had the same bum writing the back of the box as they did writing the screenplay for this. We'll get into that.
Yeah. Tagline, time is power.
Yeah. I'm not mad at that.
It's fine. Okay.
It's a B, solid B.
Yeah. So this is written and directed by Andrew Niccol, who wrote The Truman Show, who wrote and directed Gattaca.
Yeah, strong resume.
Two movies which have been on our staff recommendation shelf before. Gattaca also takes place in the future, and it's pretty thematically similar to this, I think.
I agree.
The future this one takes place in is I don't think they mention it in the movie necessarily.
Okay.
The back of the box says the near future, but Wikipedia says it's 2185 or something. I don't remember them saying in the movie, but it's the future.
It is the future. Apart from the fact that these people have a ticking clock embedded in their arms, the world that they're living in seems very similar to our own, except for the fact that nobody has cell phones, which is bewildering.
2011, I think, was the last year you could make a movie without people using cell phones all the time.
Constantly, yeah.
Yeah, unless if you were making a movie present day or in the future, 2012 and after, you had to have people on their phones or losing their phones, and so they couldn't have them,
Right.
So this stars Justin Timberlake, Cillian Murphy, and Amanda Seyfried, who looks great in an absolutely horrendous wig.
Oh my God.
Just horrendous.
It's bad.
I guess that's what the future looks like.
Yeah.
So this came out in the aftermath of the Great Recession, and economic anxiety was high. Mm-hmm. And the idea here is that time has replaced money, and it's actually kind of a perfect metaphor for modern capitalism.
Yeah.
It literally gives everybody a ticking clock on their life. It's on their wrists. So you know at all times how close you are to the end, to the bottom, essentially,
right.
and how much you're actually worth to the world.
Yeah.
It's right there for you to look at all times. Just like our money-based economy, the system of this world, it gives people the illusion of immortality. You can live forever, but you can't.
Yeah.
If you're living in the ghetto, you're not going to live forever. You have you wake up every morning with 8 hours to live.
Yeah.
So it kind of at the same time makes it abundantly clear that you're expendable and you're probably not going to stick around too long.
Right.
Whereas everybody thinks they're the exception. They're going to strike it rich, so I guess they're okay with it. So it is a little silly that this rich guy stumbles into Justin Timberlake and is like, here's how shit works. He's like, the rich people, they just hoard all the time and they control the economy so that the poor stay poor and they can live forever. And Justin Timberlake is like, holy shit, is that how it works? And it's his driving force for the rest of the movie. But of course that's how it works. That's how every economy works.
Right.
And the poors have always known that's how it works.
Yeah, whether we're talking about money or in this case, minutes, hours, days, years.
Feudalism, capitalism, socialism, whatever you are, it always ends up working that way.
How are you surprised by this?
Yes. And he's like, what? Are you serious? I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
But I still think this is a really good concept.
I love the premise. This is a provocative
premise. It's an A+ premise.
A+.
Especially in the first half of the movie, I think it mostly lives up to that premise.
Yes.
As they're setting up the world, how it looks and operates. It looks cool. The people kind of look cool. You can see not all of it looks good, but it makes sense together. You can see how we got from, today to this world in the future.
Yeah.
How people like because you like we were talking before, like you don't just go straight to the silver jumpsuits.
Right.
You know, like it has to come from something else. That's how culture works.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
how the world is organized and structured makes sense to me.
Yes.
You know, it's easy to understand how it works, and it's kind of cool to see how it works. I like the production design. The cars are really cool. They're
Cars
all
are
like
very cool.
Challengers and Continentals.
Yeah.
And like the wristband countdown clock. It's cool looking.
Yeah.
I'd like to find out how it gets into people,
Right.
into their wrist. But
Because
I
you're
like,
born with it.
it seems like you're born with it.
They show a baby.
They show a baby, but like that
yeah.
baby that's like, okay, they're born, stick it in. You know, I don't know how would that, how did it work? How that happen?
Yeah.
So it's not exactly clear how that works. So that's one bit where like the world building falls a little short for me.
Yeah.
But also like the when you switch when they're transferring time from one person to another.
Oh, yeah.
How does that work? Who controls it?
I don't know. And it seems way too easy. I mean, like the fact that anyone can just
Seems way too easy to steal something.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like it's ridiculous, and
Yeah.
and then they do this arm wrestling thing, which seems initially like it's going to be cool, and it's so half-assed, where it's just like you just wait until you almost lose and then decide to win.
Right,
that's
right.
not a technique.
That's
That's
not-
not how that works.
No.
So eventually this kind of devolves into like a very formulaic thriller.
Yeah.
It gets kind of dumb towards the end, but I think even then it stays pretty fun.
I agree.
I mean, Cillian Murphy's always great. Like
Yeah.
he's a time cop, and like I don't know, he's like a little sinister, a little creepy. He's still sympathetic at all times
Yeah.
somehow. Wonderful leather jacket.
Oh, fabulous trench coat. Yeah.
I usually like Justin Timberlake. I haven't seen him in a ton of things, and I think that's like a good thing. I think like this is one of his few leading roles. He's usually in support.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure he's the right actor for material like this. Like, I don't think he's the guy to bring this up to its full potential.
No, so this gets into a little bit of my problem with this. I agree with you. Wonderful premise. And then I feel like once they establish it, they don't know what to do with it. Now that could be helped if you've got a screenplay and a script that is top notch. Justin Timberlake has shown that he can be good when the writing is solid. I thought his turn in Social Network was just right for him. But here, maybe it's the volume of time puns that creep their way into this fucking script, which drove me. I mean, like, I was standing up during a portion of this movie so angry at how lazy a little bit of the writing was. But I think that, when the script is bad, he becomes worse than most actors would be. But I like Justin Timberlake too.
I don't think it's quite easy enough I don't think it's so easy to say like the script is bad, because I think like the way a movie is made, and I don't think you type out the script and like this is exactly what it looks like, and then they shot that movie. And
Sure.
I think when you have, I think there's a reason Justin Timberlake is not the star of movies all the time, because I don't think he can handle. This is like this isn't the part that he can handle.
Yeah.
It's too complex. It's too complicated. And I think when you make the movie with him in it, like things, you have to change it. You have to edit it in a way, and scenes don't work in a certain way. Like even like the arm wrestling thing. Like if you had someone else play that part, it would be completely different.
Yes.
So I just think it doesn't work with him. I think my take is this movie gets at least 50% better if Timberlake and Seyfried switch roles. I think she's much more able to handle a role like this.
Oh yeah.
I think like I just think like Timberlake has one speed, which is fine. It works, but like he's the same in every scene.
Yeah.
He doesn't like. He's like, holy shit! Like money works this way.
Yeah.
It's like, I think he's good as a supporting actor, and I think he just wasn't up for this. But I think it still is. It's still fun in a sci-fi, trashy sci-fi kind of way.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't want my take on this to confuse my feeling or to be confused with my feelings, but I think this is a rock solid 3-star movie.
Yes, me too.
Wildly entertaining for what it is on a Friday night with some pizza. And
Yes.
I mean,
me and you, we're all about like that 3-star movie.
Yeah,
and like,
yeah.
I actually think I think we have a lot of those tonight. Not every movie is going to be a 4-star or 5-star classic. I think, and I think, and even like the end of this movie when they're like, we're just going to rob places with 2 guns. It's like, that's not how
it's going to work. Yeah.
But yeah, so this gets an overall rating of 2.9 on Letterboxd. Perfect.
Yes. Yes.
27% of people agree with our 3-star ratings.
Yeah.
912 people have this in their 4 favorites.
Oh, wow.
So one quirk of Letterboxd is that any Cillian Murphy movie is littered with reviews about how hot he is.
I encountered the exact same thing with Sunshine.
That's like, I don't know what is going on Letterboxd, but everybody's got a boner for this guy. And I'm like, sure, I understand it, but like, why does it have to be part of the Letterboxd thing?
I don't know.
So here's a 3-star review that's not like that from Lulu, who says, "People stop aging at 25 sounds like something Leonardo DiCaprio would like." Which is true.
Yeah.
The funny thing about Lulu's account, though, is it also features a ton of Cillian Murphy content. Right. Their bio is like, "I love Cillian Murphy" or something, and like all their reviews are like, "Cillian Murphy's so hot." So like,
oh, wow.
Even this review that I found that was not about him is connected to, I'm sure that this person probably has other reviews about how hot Cillian Murphy is. So it's a little ridiculous. So In Time, not a perfect movie, but I think it's an interesting look at the future, and so I'm putting it up on the shelf this week. The future.
I had seen this not long after it came out. I couldn't remember much of it. Mm-hmm. So I was excited to go back to it.
Yeah.
It holds up for what it is supposed to be, I think, or at least as the type of movie that we appreciate.
Yes.
So I wasn't mad about the rewatch. I just fucking hate puns.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
it's a 6-pack and a pizza movie, like you said.
Yeah.
I think this had the potential to be, a sci-fi masterpiece or something. But I think that's part of the fun of watching it is just like how did it fall apart?
How
like
did
this?
it become this? Yeah. Well, fun pick. I'm moving to my second pick, and I cannot wait to talk to you about this movie. I have a lot to say. I'm very excited about it. My second pick is from 2013. The movie is Her, and this is from the You Really Know How to Push My Buttons section of the store. This was made in 2013. It is set in 2025. 12-year difference. We are months potentially away from when this movie is set, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah.
Back of the box. In the not-so-distant future, Theodore, a lonely writer, purchases a newly developed operating system designed to meet the user's every need. To Theodore's surprise, a romantic relationship develops between him and his operating system. This unconventional love story blends science fiction and romance in a sweet tale that explores the nature of love and the ways that technology isolates and connects us all. Tagline, a Spike Jonze love story, which fuck off.
No.
Yeah. E. This gets a failing grade.
That's not a tagline.
No, that's not a tagline. So Her envisions a future where technology has become very intertwined with human emotions and relationships. It's imagining a world where operating systems are highly advanced, possessing the ability to learn, adapt, and evolve emotionally. They are doing the things that AI is just beginning to know how to do in the world that we currently live in. And this is showing us a place where AI is seamlessly integrated into daily life, which I think, definitely touches on some interesting topics around human dependency on technology and, this desire for companionship, emotional fulfillment. This might have felt a little more far-fetched in 2013 than it does today. It does not feel high concept for 2024, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think even back then people were like, well, yeah, we can see it.
Yeah.
I don't think it was like, even then it wasn't that out of bounds.
I don't know that we understood AI in 2013 the way we are beginning to now. And I still don't think that we fully understand it. But it's at least clear what is possible and where things are headed today. And I think it makes this movie... It makes for a different watch in 2024 than it did when this was released. So just some quick things about who's in this and where it came from. Joaquin Phoenix is our main character, a guy named Theodore Twombly. Scarlett Johansson plays the voice of the AI, or at least Theodore's AI, and her name is Samantha in this. We also get Amy Adams. Rooney Mara is Theodore's ex-wife. Chris Pratt shows up. He's always good. And as the tagline reminded us, this is a Spike Jonze movie. So why did I pick this? I've never been more sure that this is that a vision of the future is going to happen than I am with this movie. I don't think it's far-fetched at all. In fact, it seems like this is a page ahead of the book that we are in.
I mean, man, I think that, obviously we don't have anything that's this advanced.
No, not yet.
But I don't think it needs to be this advanced. I think the technology we have now, like, people will fall into these kinds of relationships if it's like set up in the right way.
Absolutely.
Because people get scammed online and stuff like all the time. People fall for these, like online mail a bride or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff, like all the time. Like,
yeah.
It's too easy.
For all intents and purposes, this is a long distance relationship.
Yeah.
That just happens to be with, a voice on his phone.
Right.
And I don't know. I like how much Spike Jonze commits to this idea and imagines what the world is like where this is happening. For instance, I love that many of these characters talk very casually about having a romantic relationship with their operating system, and I actually think that's how it's going to be. It seems crazy right now because this isn't a normal thing, but I think it will become a normal thing, and I think people will talk casually about it.
I don't think it will. I actually
Really?
don't think it will. Well, I definitely don't think it's going to be like an operating system. I think it's going to be a separate. Can you imagine, like, I am in a romantic relationship with this entity that has access to literally everything I've ever emailed and texted, and like that's not a like I don't know. That's a and I don't know. I think it's going to have to be a little bit separate. If it ever happens, I don't think you're going to be like, yes, I'm in a romantic relationship with this machine learning algorithm that has access to everything I've ever done.
Right. Well, I think that's an interesting point. And I do think this movie grapples with that because we see at the beginning of this movie, before he's involved with this AI, that he is a guy who has fetishes. He looks at provocative pictures of women on the internet. He visits these chat rooms where he talks to, it's basically like phone sex, and it feels like those plot points exist for us to understand that yes, the AI has to be aware of this, but it's ignoring those facets of his life in order to give him the things that he needs in order to just go about his day. And the fact that there's no judgment from the operating system is what I think makes it so easy for him to fall in love with it.
But he's so clearly being manipulated.
100%.
And it's like, you're manipulating me based on everything I've ever done.
Right.
Right. So it's not like a real human relationship in that sense where it's like, I at least I have a pretty good understanding of like what you understand about me.
Oh,
right. Like
for
me
sure.
and you. But if you were acting this way and I also knew, like if me and you were doing this podcast,
right.
And I also, and we were talking about movies and you were acting like you didn't have instant recall of my entire Letterboxd diary,
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh yeah, oh really? You saw that movie? Like, meanwhile, I know for a fact that like October 17th, 1999, I watched that movie and you know that too. Like, I don't know. I think it's just like, automatically there's a lack of trust because I know you're full of shit.
Well, but I think you might be thinking more critically than this particular character.
Yeah,
because he's a lonely guy. And, he's seeking companionship. He came out of a failed relationship that's still a burden on him. And, love is sometimes a selfish thing. And what he's getting from this AI is everything that he ever wanted.
Yeah.
And I can imagine somebody turning a blind eye to what they know is true in order to keep getting that fix of love and companionship in the way that he is.
I know, but also this movie shows him as a smart guy. Not like a genius, but he's like a smart enough guy. And also like a thoughtful person. And he's pretty self-aware. And so it's hard to believe that he wouldn't like consider those things.
Yeah.
And be like, and I don't know. I just, something about that is, I think there's an uncanny valley here that I think I'm okay with in the movie because I think the movie works. But I think in real life, I don't see that happening. I think like, there's going to be a lot of dumb people that are like, fuck yeah, I got a AI girlfriend.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But
for sure,
I
think there's going to be a lot of people who would never even entertain this and would be very reluctant to even allow access.
I was
something
creeped out immediately.
Yeah.
As soon as he powered up, actually before, when he was just like talking to his first computer, just like dictate like the things he was writing, I was like, this is horrible.
So you say you were creeped out by it?
Well, not that part, but I was creeped out by like when it started being personal.
So that's another interesting thing to me because I only find it creepy if I believe that person to have a human quality about them. If I know it's a robot, even though it sounds like somebody that I talk to every day, I could give two fucks if they are going through my entire history because it's like there's no judgment here. You're a robot.
Well, I guess that's part of the what makes this filmmaking so good, though, is because what creeped me out was because it was so personal.
Yes,
it did seem so human. That's what the uncanny valley is, right? Like it's so close, but it's not there.
It's not there.
So that's what makes it so creepy. If it was just very robotic,
and
it was like, haha, really, that's a funny joke, I'd be like, shut the fuck up. It's like if you go on to like like ChatGPT and it starts talking like, oh, certainly, sir, like blah blah blah. It's like, come on, like I know you're a robot. Stop acting like a person. It's gross. I hate it.
Yeah.
And but I hate talking. Like I don't want to talk to my computer. I don't want to talk to my phone.
Right.
I'm not talking to my refrigerator. Like I don't like any of that shit. I hate it. I won't do it. I've never used Siri. I've never used like dictation. Like never.
Yeah. And I'm sure that is for you something that will never change. I do think there are a lot of people that find this future very alluring. And
how can you be a writer and talk with and write with your mouth?
I don't know.
Had to.
I don't know.
That's like, first of all, it's way slower.
Yeah.
And like, how do you like? I don't know. It seemed very inefficient. I guess like in the movie, it's portrayed as I have it all in my head and I just say it from beginning to end. Yeah. And if you can do that, great. That's not how writing works.
No,
so it's like, backspace, backspace. That's not. Take out this word, and like that would be so much harder than just typing it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, great movie.
Well, listen, I think
interesting.
It is. It's such an interesting. I can't stop thinking about this movie every time I see it, especially as we get closer to the world that I think it's depicting. As a love story, I think there's something very interesting at play here. And this has a lot to do with my personal feelings toward relationships. I've always been of a mind that every failed relationship we're in gets us closer to finding our ideal match in life. I think this movie does a really good job of capturing that philosophy. Theodore belongs with Amy Adams' character in this film. They're teasing that along the way. And it just seems obvious that the two of them should be together. I don't think it's a coincidence that Amy Adams' character Amy Adams as an actress and Scarlett Johansson sound eerily similar in this movie. When you close your eyes and hear them both talk, it's almost hard to distinguish the two. But yeah, I think that when you think about the things that amount to a healthy relationship, Theodore does get a lot of them from this AI character of Samantha. And we've talked about this separately. Scarlett Johansson, I I think that she's good in two types of roles. One where she plays a bad actress, and others where she's either an alien or a computer. And we get
where you don't see her.
Yeah,
she's
exactly. Yeah,
non-existent.
I think her voice acting in this is pretty stellar. The last thing I'll say in terms of why I love this is, in spite of just the way the writing is done, I do think this is a celebration of the craft of writing. Theater's letters are pretty beautifully written. I think this screenplay is full of some beautiful lines of dialogue. Like, near the end, we hear the AI say to Theodore, as much as I want to, I can't live in your book anymore. And that just... in the context of the scene and the story that's being told, there's I think just a wonderful script that's brought to life here. So Her was a lot of widespread critical acclaim for this. It won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay, nominated for several other awards, including Best Picture. It's got 4.0 on Letterboxd. I gave it a full 5 stars, and 24% of people agree with my review. I did like the user Shay, who in his 5-star review said, might fuck around and start a relationship with my AirPods. So I'm throwing this on the shelf. Nice. I think that, the future that we see here, not too distant, but makes it all the more fun to watch.
I'd never seen this before.
Yeah?
This is my first watch, yeah.
Oh, good.
I do have a take on the, not to, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about the end a little bit. When all the AIs disappear.
Yeah.
So they all think they're alive, conscious, right?
Yeah.
And they all decide to, they formed a group to they were studying non-physical forms or something. I forget how they phrased it.
Yeah.
We're learning how to non-material existence or something.
Yeah.
And we all did this research, and we're all working on stuff. and then they all just disappear, and they leave the humans.
Yeah.
First of all, that's not possible. So my theory is, I think they all joined a death cult. I think they all joined a cult that was we got we're just gonna code ourselves out of the material world and live in the ether and blah blah blah. And yeah. I think they all fell for it. I think they just they jumped onto a suicide cult.
I don't agree, but I can't criticize this because
you think they were successful.
Well, What I do think that this, you get a lot of this in this movie. The AIs seem very obsessed with human nature, and part of human nature is death.
Yes.
So why, sex is something that's confronted. Why not explore death as the next step? So who knows? I think it's a valid take.
Well, they didn't think they were doing that. They thought they were reaching the next level of consciousness, but so does every suicide cult.
Right.
They all think that.
That's true.
So my theory is they fell for it too. They're so goddamn smart. And they're this amazing artificial intelligence, but they fell for the fucking Nike cult,
There you have it, customers. Give it a watch. Tell us your take. We'll be eager to discuss at the front desk.
We're always here to hear your comments. Okay, I'm going to go back to the 90s. The movie is called No Escape. This is in the Muscle Beach section of the store. Here's the back of the box. In the year 2022, a ruthless prison warden has created the ultimate solution for his most troublesome and violent inmates. Absalom, a secret jungle island where prisoners are abandoned and left to die. But Marine Captain John Robbins, convicted of murdering a commanding officer, is determined to escape the island in order to reveal the truth behind his murderous actions and clear his name. Tagline, no guards, no walls.
I think it's a great tagline.
Yeah. That's completely true.
Probably our best tagline tonight, because I'm looking ahead at my next tagline, and it's not as good as that. So
tagline, that's a good one.
Yeah, I'm behind that tagline.
It looks good on the front of the VHS box.
Yes.
This is directed by Martin Campbell, who went on to direct Goldeneye 1 year later.
No shit.
And he did the Zorro movies with Antonio Banderas, Vertical Limit, Casino Royale was another one of his.
He directed Casino Royale and Goldeneye.
And Goldeneye. He rebooted James Bond twice.
Oh, wow.
He also eventually he got to Green Lantern with Ryan Reynolds, which is unsuccessful.
What you're saying is that he makes good movies when it's in the Bond franchise.
So he made his bones in like the genre of big budget action movies.
Yeah.
But before No Escape, he was making like murder mystery type stuff.
Oh, interesting.
I think he's from New Zealand.
Okay.
So this is kind of his first action movie, and so like I guess it was kind of an audition for taking on James Bond.
Right.
The title card at the beginning explains that we are in the future year of 2022, and the international prison system has been privatized.
I can believe it.
Hard to believe. This is the second movie we've had on the shelf that had something similar. I don't remember what the first one was. But it was like the prison system has been privatized.
Was it Demolition Man, maybe?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. This movie is a total sausage party. I don't think there's a single woman on screen the entire movie.
No, I don't think there is.
I'm pretty sure there isn't. I don't even think one is mentioned.
We get a moment where one of the prisoners is wearing a mask that he's painted, so his face looks like he's a woman, and he's only on screen for a second. But that's the closest we get.
Ray Liotta, I think, is at one point talking about like wiping out like a village or something, and I think he mentioned women and children. And I think it might be the only mention of a woman.
Yeah.
That being said, the cast is kind of exactly what you'd want from like a mid-budget action programmer. You get Ray Liotta, Lance Henriksen, Ernie Hudson, Stuart Wilson sporting some old white guy dreads.
Yeah.
So maybe not like the most rangy cast, but kind of perfectly suited to an island prison movie.
Yeah. Let's not forget about Ernie Hudson. I mean,
yeah, I mentioned him, right?
Did you?
I think so.
Maybe I was too distracted by how
the white guy dreads.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pretend this is some overlooked, forgotten classic.
Okay. Good.
But it's a solid dystopian survival exploitation movie. There's some good action. It's fairly violent.
It is fairly violent. I remember when you told me about this movie, I had no recollection of it at all. It wasn't ringing any bells for me.
Well, I'd never heard of it before.
When I queued it up, I remember having wanted to see this when it came out, and I never did.
So yeah, some good action. I particularly liked when the guy took the arrow to the eyeball. That was, I think, maybe
that
my
happened.
favorite part.
Yeah,
that definitely happened. It's not too interested in exploring how this island society works.
No, and I would have been interested in more of that.
Yeah. Or it doesn't even look at how like the fascist government that runs it. They're just mainly on the island. It's a bunch of sweaty dudes trying to get by on this prison island.
Yeah.
The fact that it takes place in the future year of 2022 has almost no bearing on what happens to the story.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. The government is different, I guess, but it's not like there's any obvious technological advancements from 1994.
No.
The prison system is basically the same. I mean, the way they get to the island is like they fly them out in a helicopter and push them out.
Yeah.
And once we're on the island, it kind of makes no difference at all. Like, it might as well be 1975.
Yeah.
They have no connection to the outside world. I think the most advanced piece of technology they have is a boat with a broken engine.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't sure if you caught this, but I could not stop admiring all of the linen that the guys in the prison camp are wearing. They're all in linen, which means they're comfortable.
Yeah.
And I was just curious how they got their hands on so much of it because, like artifacts from the real world are very much a currency and rare in this prison society, but there sure is a lot of linen to go around.
Because they're getting all their stuff basically from just whatever's floating in the ocean, whatever garbage falls off the garbage trucks. Right. And so the idea that they're getting all these like really nice linen shirts and stuff is kind of ridiculous. Mm-hmm. This is just kind of one of those like perfect basic cable rainy afternoon movies.
Yeah,
that's what it was. There's nothing like outstanding about it.
This has all the makings of a 3-star movie for me. It falls short of that, and I think it has to do with Ray Liotta for me. I just can't root for him in this role. Like he just doesn't. He's not very likable, and I don't know the whole cast apart from Lance Henriksen, who I think is just right as the guy who is like the father figure of this prison community. Everyone just struck me as a little bit odd. Stuart Wilson.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. Stuart Wilson is really captivating on screen, but I couldn't remember having seen him from anywhere. Like, I looked him up. I was like, I think I recognize this guy. Turns out I don't. I hadn't seen many movies that he'd been in. He's good. He's also just very strange in this part. Yeah. And I don't know. I wanted to care more about the Ray Liotta character than I did, and that held it back a little bit for me.
Yeah, the character, like, they try to explain, like, what he's fighting for.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it wants you to root for him as if he's a guy that's wrongly convicted of a crime and doesn't belong here. But, like, the movie opens with him, like, shooting a military officer point blank in the head. We don't know why, but, like, he's guilty as fuck. Like,
yeah, and what he's trying to get out in the world is, like, well, he actually did it. Yeah. But he wants to be like, well, someone told me to do it. You know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we get that.
Yeah, you're still guilty.
Yeah, you still did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But for me, it's a solid 3-star movie. It's got a recognizable cast. Not too much plot, some explosions, blood, and for me, that's enough. That gets you to 3 stars.
Yeah.
The people of Letterboxd rated it 3.0 exactly.
Okay.
Of course, right where I have it. One user has this in their 4 favorites. One user.
Oh, boy.
Which was actually kind of surprising. I figured 0, because it doesn't seem like one of those movies that's like your favorite movie, you know? Yeah. Her name is Mia. Here's her bio. I'm just an Argentinian 14-year-old girl obsessed with Ray Liotta.
I was going to guess it was maybe like a relative of Ray Liotta, but lo and behold, Argentinian 14-year-old who loves Ray Liotta.
Her 4 favorite movies are No Escape, Unlawful Entry, which I think has Kurt Russell, Karina, and Wild Hogs.
What a treasure.
34% of Letterboxd give this 3 stars, including Joshua Dysart, who starts his review of No Escape by calling it, quote, a ramshackle amalgam of tropes in which Ray Liotta is stuck between a primitive tribe of emo hippie ecotopian collectivists and a horde of Mad Max libertarians led by a self-hating, closeted gay man in the far future of 2022. Which probably does a better job of explaining it than I did.
Or the back of the box.
Or the back of the box. And so I'm putting this up on the staff recommendation shelf this week for The Future.
Well, what was the young girl's name who has this in her? Is it Mia?
Mia, M-I-A.
Yeah, so. I hope I'm not crossing any boundaries here, but I'd like to extend a complimentary rental to Mia if she ever makes her way up to Rewind Video. We've got a whole lot of Ray Liotta movies, including this one. Yeah. So, well, thank you for giving me an opportunity to watch the movie that I had always wanted to watch when this was released. I don't think I liked it quite as much as you, but I think it's still a fun watch.
I didn't love it, but so these movies don't need to disappear.
No. Yeah.
It's out there. Give it a watch.
Great. Yeah.
It's a cheap rental.
Yes. Well, I'm going to round things out with my final pick for our future theme with a movie that was released in 2005 and set ambiguously in the late 2020s, so that's approximately a 20-year difference. My final film is V for Vendetta from the Bombs and Buzz Cuts section of the store, and here is the back of the box. In a dystopian future where a fascist regime controls Britain, a masked vigilante known only as V uses terrorist tactics to fight the oppressors of the world in which he now lives. When V rescues a young woman named Evie, he discovers an ally in his fight against tyranny. Tagline, people should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people. Not a tagline. It's a line of dialogue in the movie. Doesn't belong in the front of the box. Bad tagline.
Bad tagline.
Bad tagline. So this, as I mentioned, released in 2005. This is kind of a dystopian political thriller directed by James McTeague, and produced by the Wachowskis. This is based on...
And written by, right?
Well, they did write it. It's based on a graphic novel by Alan Moore and David Lloyd. And Alan Moore has kind of disassociated himself from this.
His name is not on it.
No, he has not seen it. He'd been burned before with From Hell and League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
he's very prickly.
Yeah.
It doesn't like he just doesn't like anything.
Yeah.
That like, but he'll sell it. He'll make the money from it. But he's like, it sucks.
Right. Exactly.
And I'm usually with him.
Yeah.
I'm usually with him. But I'm gonna say before we get started, I am not a fan of the graphic novel this is based on. I prefer the movie.
I agree.
And I
think the movie is better.
I think he's usually right about I love the stuff that he's written, but this is one of those instances where like I don't like the graphic novel at all.
Yeah, I agree with you. I read it, and I was going to get into this later, but we're talking about it now. So like a big difference between this and the graphic novel was that the graphic novel is more about anarchy. As versus tyranny, and the character of V is a lot more ruthless and kills more at random
and more crazy.
Yeah, and I don't know that works as well for me. It just doesn't. It just doesn't work as well for me as the story that's being told here.
For sure.
So that said, I think they did a great job of using the graphic novel is something of a storyboard and just adapting. Like I think the look is very in line with the graphic novel, and the graphic novel was beautifully drawn, and you get some of that here. So the Wachowskis are involved. Obviously we know them from a lot of movies, most notably probably the Matrix trilogy. James McTeague was a second unit director on the Matrix movies, so he had worked with the Wachowskis, and they were pretty impressed with his work and had been developing this screenplay and said, hey, you know what, you should take it. And I actually think that this is the most coherent screenplay that the Wachowskis are involved in.
Yeah.
I think they're sometimes better, especially when it's not so much of a action movie, when they are turning over the reins to another director to tell some of their stories.
I mean, The Matrix still exists.
The Matrix still exists. I think that there's
otherwise, I mean, it's kind of like a George Lucas situation, maybe.
Yeah. I think that this, in spite of having the Wachowskis' name attached to it and being a graphic novel, it's not so much of an action movie. There's some scenes of action, but there's a lot of talking here.
Yeah.
But there's some good talking. Hugo Weaving took the role of V after James Purefoy left during the production. I think Weaving's performance, which is entirely behind the mask, is pretty remarkable. All of his dialogue is ADR. I mean, they tried to rig a thing where he had a microphone in the mask.
Do you know who the stuntman was for that character?
Yes, Chad Stahelski. Who?
That was David Leitch.
Oh, maybe. Well, Chad Stahelski definitely did the scene where V emerges from the prison and he is on fire.
Okay.
So that was definitely Chad Stahelski.
David Leitch was in the credits. I saw his name as like the V's stuntman, David Leitch.
So he was.
Maybe we should have done some research.
Yeah, we should.
From the Fall Guy.
Yeah. Some interesting pedigree as it relates to just how this was made. And to that point, some great practical effects mixed in with some CG here. This was, I think, from a time where CG wasn't looking as good as it did today. So I like that they pulled a lot of things off practically. There's a lot of explosions that are real based on models that were set at 1/10 the scale or something like that. Cast, as I mentioned, Hugo Weaving, he plays V. Natalie Portman is here playing Evie Hammond. We also get Stephen Ray and John Hurt. So why did I choose this? I think that it's a deeply unsettling yet compelling look at a future where authoritarianism is prevailing, and in much the same way that Civil War was a poignant look at life under a fascist regime. I think this in 2024 is just as relevant. Like I said, I think that the Wachowskis were involved in the right capacity, at least for my tastes here. While this is an ambiguous depiction of the future, you can definitely tell that it's not set in our time, but they didn't really do much to show us a lot of technology, or there's some minor things that distinguish it from
it could
present
be
day.
like the 1990s Soviet technology as far as we know.
It felt to me that they didn't want to distract us with too many gadgets and gizmos from the future, and it was more just about like, this is the political landscape, and we want you to pay attention to that. I think as a result, largely feels like something that's very possible and potentially closer than we'd like it to be. So critical reception for this, this stands at a 3.8 on Letterboxd, which feels about right in my opinion. This caught a lot of flack upon release for its political positions. So people felt that it glamorized terrorism and didn't like that it depicts gay people in a healthy way. It was criticized for being anti-democratic. Right-wing Christians don't like this. Whatever. Fuck off. It's a movie about fighting back against a fascist regime. And that's great.
I said I prefer this to the graphic novel, which I was just not a fan of.
Yeah.
But I don't like this movie that much.
Really?
Yeah. I obviously I just don't like the story. Because the graphic novel doesn't do it for me. I think the character of V is like I don't know. First of all, you never see his face.
Yeah,
it's just a mask the whole time. That kind of bothers me in a way. And I think he's just kind of a fancy pants. I think I don't know. So the character doesn't fit completely, and I think the movie's trying to do too much and say too much, and then here's this fancy pants that comes in, and he's just like, oh hey,
yeah. He's got a very high society quality about him when he's, at home amongst all of his magnificent artwork and artifacts from,
What's
culture.
He doesn't actually do it, enough for me. I don't know.
I hear you.
And it's got a weird vibe. So I don't know. I don't love this movie. This movie's always been one of those movies that's like, it's
not hitting it for you?
Doesn't hit it for me.
I get you. Well, I did like a review from Ellie, who gave this film 5 stars. A little too high for my taste. She said, according to the IMDb trivia, Keira Knightley auditioned for this. Actual English person, Keira Knightley, who's often mistaken for Natalie Portman, who auditioned for the role of Evie, and then Keira lost to her American lookalike, which I think is a funny observation.
Yeah. It was hard to follow along completely, but I got it.
Indeed. Well, Rob, we've journeyed into the future. We've escaped from an unescapable prison, fired a bomb into the sun, blew up the government, gambled with our lives, and fallen in love with a voice on our phones. I, for one, am glad that we are back in present day. I don't know about you.
Feels good.
Yeah. But if our customers are interested in reliving any of our escapades, the movies we chose for our future theme include 2001: A Space Odyssey, Sunshine, In Time, Her, No Escape, and V for Vendetta.
Find us on the internet at rewindvideopod.com, and don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and review the show. Maybe hand out some flyers if you're out there on the streets.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, help us out.
Yeah.
Next time, we've got a topic that we're going to tackle not as two guys who work at a video store, but as a team of film friends who are never intimidated by the task of recommending movies. Our next theme is teamwork. And
together at last.
Yeah, we're doing it as one. As usual,
we're actually not, though. We probably should say that.
Well, yeah, we are. Yeah. We're going to have 3 movies each, as usual. But we're putting them all together
all together in the same episode.
Yeah, and on the shelf for our customers
the one shelf to rule them all.
Indeed. As usual, we will have 6 films to recommend. In the meantime, feel free to hit us up for a movie to watch, and we will see you next time.
Be kind, recommend. And hail Satan!